gentlemen, welcome back to the number one most valuable real estate community in existence. Tonight's stream is definitely going to be one that you don't want to miss. So invite some people that you think would benefit from being in proximity with us to come and join us here at reirev.com or on Discord at discord.gg/reirev. Free community, guys. You got to take advantage of this opportunity. We got a lot of people popping in tonight from all over the world. And we're actually going to have a very interesting topic tonight. We're going to be talking about bankruptcy. And we're going to be talking about some deals that most investors never see. We've got on loss mitigation experts, Patrick Butler and Steve Schiller, joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all doing today?
If we were any better, we'd be twins, John.
All good.
Phenomenal. So a lot of stuff we're going to go over in tonight's stream. So I'm excited. But I do want to hit a quick prayer and ask that, the Lord would just really pour into each and every single soul that's coming to join us tonight, that the information on this call would be truly life-changing, and that this would be an amazing opportunity for everybody that's in here to enrich themselves, and everybody that come across the information that is going to be shared tonight will change the way that we perceive the situations we find ourselves in, the conversations that we're having with these sellers. And I ask that we would be able to help people and use what we learn for the greater good. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to hit this. We're going to invite a bunch of people. Guys, make sure that you're inviting people to come and join us on the stream. And we got a lot to talk about. So tonight we're going to go over bankruptcy basics, for people that don't have any experience, dealing with bankruptcies. Talking about, more critical concepts, that investors need to understand. We got Mr. Juan Nicasio joining us now. Good to see you, Juan.
What's up, everybody? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you just yet, but we can hear you.
We'll be there.
Perfect. Where these opportunities actually are. So the point of the whole stream is to give you instruction that you can actually implement in your business. This is not entertainment, but real instruction. These guys are sharing a massive amount of knowledge. It's truly a wealth of knowledge being shared with us. So please show your support throughout the stream. Whenever there's a gem or something, like if you feel appalled, let us know in that side chat. We always keep our eye on that side chat. Participate, ask questions, and let's hop into it. So without further ado, Patrick, Steve, Juan, let's dive into bankruptcies and really explain to everybody, the basics, like what is a bankruptcy and when does a seller find themselves in that type of situation?
Steve, you want to launch it?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, everybody. Good to see you all. This is a interesting, at least for us, an interesting topic that most people really overlook, right? And it's one of the reasons why we say, from a bankruptcy perspective, when you get access to this, when you get access to this inventory, most investors never ever see it. What's bankruptcy? Most people think it's the end of a deal, but actually it's the beginning, right? So United States have had this law, it's the 40s, 50s, 60s. Basically, you can file bankruptcy, get rid of all your debt. Any loan you have, gone, finished if you go through the process. Most real estate investors really ignore bankruptcy. They feel, oh, it's legal, it's complicated, it's just the end. But we're here to tell you today, it's actually the beginning, and why. So it's a federal legal process, right? Reorganize it. So there's two main things we want to talk: Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 13 reorganizes, right? You take all your debt, you figure out how to repay it. The stuff you can't repay discharges, gets away. The stuff you can repay, usually repay over 3 to 5 years. The liquidation, Chapter 7, is you just throw everything into the bankruptcy. Whatever can be sold gets sold. It's under the supervision of a trustee, somebody who's assigned to it, in the court. That's it. Everything is federal, all under the U.S. Bankruptcy Code. So it doesn't matter where you're at. The concepts we're talking about is all the same. There are some local rules in the districts, but for the most part, 95% of what we're talking about applies in every state. Doesn't matter where you're at because it's federal law. So we'll start with that. Yeah.
Before Before we start with that, let's frame how we went into this space originally. Steve's a mortgage servicer, default servicer for 25, 26 years. I'm a real estate guy, 40 years this year. And we met about 20 years ago in the default real estate space. And we did a lot of stuff together. In 2014, one of our partners, the guy that started foreclosure.com, subsequently sold it, also juggernaut in the industry. He ran a technology company that built HomePath for Fannie Mae, that's still in use today to liquidate their REOs. Built HomePath short sales, and also built short home steps for Freddie Mac. Back in 2014, he got us all into a room and he goes, "Guys, I want to tackle the toughest thing in the real estate business that there is." And we said, "Well, what's that?" He says, "Bankruptcy." And we said, "Bankruptcy, that's like the black hole. That's the void of all things real estate." He goes, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "That's why I want to tackle this." So we spent a lot of time, Steve, what, about 6 months, 7 months, doing some due diligence with federal trustees. We did a pilot program and some test studies with these guys. And we said, there's definitely something here. And what we're going to talk about today, and I just want to stop Steve momentarily before we get into the meat, is we lived and breathed this stuff for 14 years. The only thing that stopped that was COVID-19. COVID-19, when the foreclosure moratoriums kicked in, it kind of made us pull the throttles back, because foreclosures, as far as real estate are concerned, are one of the driving factors for people filing bankruptcy. So just to frame how we know what we know, we've processed 10,000 plus bankruptcy transactions, most of which were short sales. So this is where we're bringing this knowledge base to you guys from. And John, again, thanks for having us. So buckle your seatbelts, kids. This is going to get interesting. Sorry, Steve.
No, it's great. I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go really high level on what bankruptcy is, and then we're gonna get into an actual deal we've done, so we can kind of explain why this works, how it works, where you guys can look for it, why this is an opportunity and a big one, right? And we'll explain that in a minute. So the two main things, like I said, chapter 7, chapter 13. Chapter 7 is the liquidation. Basically, any non-exempt assets, boats, houses, cars, jewelry, federal income tax, anything that can be sold by a trustee is sold by a trustee. That's their job. They have to maximize the value. So there's two types, right? Secured and unsecured. They basically take all the secured stuff and they just try to sell it.
And secured, by the way, would be stuff secured by real property. So real estate, auto loans, boats, anything that's got tangible assets that can be liquidated. Unsecured to be your credit debt.
And the bankruptcy is quick, 4 to 6 months timeline. Why do you care about it? Well, here's why you care about it. Is number one, there's real estate assets in these. Might be doing this a little bit early in our live stream here, but there are about 550,000 bankruptcies a year, which is down to the peak, which, somewhere between, we were just talking about this, between like 2000, I think it was 2012 and 2020, there were about 750 to 800,000 bankruptcies a year. About 50% of those have a property. So if you do the math, there are about 275,000 properties that are going through bankruptcy. And about 60% of them, those people can't even afford it. So we're talking about 100,000 plus properties going through bankruptcy a year that people can't even afford. That's why this is important for you all to learn it and understand it.
Yep.
So the chapter 7, basically, trustees can sell these properties. Sometimes the homeowner just says, "Hey, I'm out, I'm done." They surrender the property. Those are good ones to go after. And in other cases, there just might be some ways to work within the chapter 7 to get deals done, or even work with that outside of chapter 7. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other chapter is chapter 13, which is a reorganization, right? Somebody goes into bankruptcy and they try to repay their debt. It's about 3 to 5 years. They try to cure all their arrearages. 95% of these people never finish their bankruptcy. 95%. Again, why is this important? A lot of people get into bankruptcy to stop foreclosure, so it's a pre-foreclosure protection. A lot of people try to structure a buyout or stop a foreclosure so that they can sell their house or do something. Um, and because most plans never complete, these are, and I will explain really why, is because when you get into a chapter 13, not only do you pay your current mortgage going forward, you also have to pay a portion of what you paid in the back, right? What you're in arrear. Well, let's make sense of this. I stopped making my mortgage payment because I couldn't afford it. And now I go into bankruptcy. And now you're telling me not only do I have to pay my mortgage payment, but now I have to pay a portion of all of the payments I never paid. I couldn't afford my payment to begin with. How do I afford this? Essentially, one of the problems of bankruptcy. That's why most of these people can't afford their house. That's why this is a really, really big opportunity for real estate investors.
And Steve, let me throw another couple pieces in here as well. Sometimes it's important to understand the players, right? When we first got into the bankruptcy space back in 2014, we thought we have to become best friends with the federal trustee. So, what is a federal trustee? There's about 1,250 trustees across the United States that are in the various different court districts. For example, in the state of Florida, there's the northern, the middle, and the southern. And these trustees are appointed by the Department of Justice. Many of them are attorneys, many of them are CPAs, others are just lay people that happen to fit the criteria for that appointment in that general area. Most of them know absolutely nothing about the real estate business. How does a person get assigned to a trustee? Well, they file bankruptcy, whether it's a 7 or a 13. There's other bankruptcies, but they're not relevant to this conversation. And they either file pro se, meaning I don't want an attorney, I can't afford an attorney, so I'm going to file by myself, or they hire a bankruptcy attorney, 1,500, 1,700 bucks, and they help them fill out all the papers and everything. And once that paperwork is filed, they get appointed to the trustee. So here now in this space that Steve's talking about, the trustee, the attorney, which by the attorneys, they don't provide any advice whatsoever to the debtor, which is the homeowner, also known as the borrower in the mortgage industry. So these people are going in blind. They're hoping that the system is going to help them with their situation, right? So as we're going to find out, it doesn't. And this is where the opportunity exists. And then we're going to pull back the curtains on how the trustee and the attorney don't even matter in this equation. And that's the big deal here. Steve?
Yeah, so real quick, what we're going to talk about just very high level bankruptcy concepts, right? The first part, and this is why it's important for all you to understand, is when somebody files bankruptcy, it doesn't matter what chapter, there's something called an automatic stay. Automatic stay basically is going to stop any debt collection, any foreclosure, anything from happening to that homeowner, right? To that loan. It just stops everything. Now, the bank can file what's called a motion for relief of stay and get that removed, and then they can move forward. So the good part is an automatic stay filing bankruptcy puts sort of that stop on everything. So it provides time for everybody to negotiate something, which could be an important tactic strategy, depending on what's going on. And it's important to understand where you're at, right? If somebody says, "Oh, I'm in bankruptcy, but motion for relief was granted," well, that's no different than not being in bankruptcy. Everything
Right.
can move forward. So it's just having that little bit of understanding.
And
So
Steve, let's share real quick the timeline that usually occurs between when the banks are told, hey, these folks are in bankruptcy, you can't talk to them anymore. And it's the banks, it's the credit cards, it's the car loans. There's how long it's supposed to take and then how long it actually takes. Share a little bit of that detail.
yeah, so essentially the banks are supposed to get in and out of chapter 7 in about 90 days. They're supposed to get out of the chapter 13 3 to 5 years. The 90 days is actually more like 200 days.
Mhm.
So they think they're getting out of bankruptcy and moving out of it within the 90 days, but the actual average is about 200. So it's just sitting there. Again, why these are such great opportunities, especially for real estate investors looking for properties. And I might be a little bit early. Let me pass this nugget,
And
which
before
is
you do, Steve, I'm going to throw one thing. There was a question on here from Q Lou. Are people paying the 15 to 1700 every time they get a trustee to postpone their auction? Two different trustees. There's the bankruptcy trustee that is assigned to a bankruptcy case. Then there's the trustee for the property and the mortgage. two completely different animals that don't even communicate with each other. So that's a different scenario altogether.
So before we start talking about why you want to buy, why you want to get involved, let me explain why you never see these. So we just talked about the 500,000 people filing bankruptcies, 275,000 or so. It's a big number. 275,000 or so have homes to them. 75% of those people current on their mortgage. That's why we call this distress deals decoded. These people are not in default, not delinquent. They are distressed because they can't afford their home, but they've been borrowing money from people. They've been doing whatever. They are current on their mortgage. That means the bank doesn't know. That means all the data providers you're looking at who have delinquent information don't know. This data is nowhere because they don't pop up on any data set other than, hey, they're in bankruptcy. That is where the opportunity for this lies, because they're current. Nobody's talking to them yet, and over half of them cannot afford their mortgage. That's the data set we're playing with.
Yep. And I think it's important that we talk about why on the chapter 7 the trustees typically don't liquidate the properties. I don't think we mentioned that, but 97% of the time in a chapter 7, I file a chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy. I don't want this property. It could be a second home. It could be a primary residence that I'm upside down on. I'm choking to death. Why don't the trustees sell these properties?
There are different reasons, right? So one is people can exempt their property. So, they just say, hey, I'm keeping it. Even though they can't afford it, they just say, I'm keeping it. And legally, the trustees can't do it, touch them. Sometimes trustees have local rules or things like that that allow them to sell certain things or not sell certain things. A lot of them are just, I don't want to go through the trouble of doing this, even though this is a great deal. So we were just looking through some of our data recently, and the interesting part of the data is, like, we found 200 in the last, no, sorry, it was in the last 2 weeks, found about 20 deals where people just said, I'm out. Most of them had equity in their house. They're not selling the property. They're like, these are the type of properties you could do wholesale, you could do novations, like you could do whatever you want with these. And I'm telling you, you're not finding them because they're not delinquent. They're not in any data set you're getting. It's just these are some of the things you find in the bankruptcy world and in the bankruptcy space.
Yeah, and I think it's also. Oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that's why we think this was great to come on and have a discussion about it.
Yeah, and here's what's really weird, guys, about the trustees. So back up until about a year or so ago, the federal trustee, the bankruptcy trustee, they receive these cases through rotation, through the Department of Justice. If you're in a district, you'll get cases. Back then, they got paid $60 to administer the case, meaning they get assigned the bankruptcy case. They've got to go through the entire process, discharging debts, court appearances, filing notices, motions. And then at the end of the whole thing, when the Chapter 7 is finally discharged and closed, they got $60. Well, they fought for decades to get more money, and now they're getting $120 to do that. When we entered that space, we thought, we're going to crush this with these trustees, because what we learned is that we can get them, even in a short sale, we can get them a carve out. We can get the banks to pay them 5% of the value of the home. So let's call it a $200,000 house. That's $10,000 that would go to the bankruptcy estate, of which the trustee technically could keep about 25% of it in their pocket. We figured $60 or even $120, 2,500, they're going to be knocking the doors down to do business with us. Plus, we did all the work for them. Not so much the case. And as Steve pointed out, if it was exempt, I can't touch it. If it was a short sale, my judge won't let me sell it, even though it's federal law and there's case study abounding with all that stuff. So it was a head scratching scenario. Thankfully, there were 1,250 of them. We had about, 10% that did business with us on a regular basis. So we had a good churn of business. And these deals always, for the most part, closed because it was federal law and there was an exact science to it. But mind-boggling, folks. So as we begin to peel back the layers of the onion, this is where we're going to share with you the aha moment where all of us can benefit from this.
All right, so let's go into this one deal. This is a good deal, and I'm gonna ask my esteemed colleague Juan to give us his opinion once I set this up of different ways an investor could have gotten into this, because we ended up selling this just retail, but this was really interesting. There was an elderly lady, husband got sick, had a lot of debt, hospitals, this, that, whatever. Ended up filing for bankruptcy because she took on some debt, and also a lot of it was her husband's, hospital medical debt. Um, and anyway, for whatever reason, trustee didn't sell it. She did nothing. Nobody told her what to do. Case got closed, right? All her debt got discharged. She no longer owed any personal money to anybody. And she actually moved out of her house because she said, I'm out, I'm done. She moved out of her house and moved in with her daughter. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, her attorney just said, oh, just leave it, the bank will take it back.
Yeah, the attorney says let the bank have it. It's the same as a bankruptcy, which it's not, by the way. A foreclosure is way worse than a bankruptcy, way worse than a short sale, way worse than any other dispo strategy, even a deed in lieu, for crying out loud.
She had no clue what she had a small mortgage, whatever. So she had an agent. She got into the agent, talked to her daughter, and talked to her, and they decided to sell the property. The property was sold as is. It was vacant. It was probably dated. I think it was a little bit old. I don't know what the ARV was back in the day, but it was probably much higher than what it sold for. Her equity, or a property that her attorney told her to walk away from, was $80,000.
Yep. And by the way, the agent on the deal lived on the other side of the block from her. She was part of our network that we worked with, and we were doing the same exact course. And she goes, the neighbor actually behind her, I guess, on that part of the street, goes, she's in bankruptcy. Is that something? And we said, yeah, talk to her. So she ended up, she says, hey, the daughter and I'll call her the old lady, and the old lady want to talk with you guys. Can we jump on a conference call? Which we did. And they were like, are you kidding me? Wait, my attorney said this and the trustee didn't do that. And we are like, no, we are not kidding you. If you want, if you want to talk to another attorney, but these are the facts, ma'am. And
Yeah.
don't walk away from the money, whatever you do.
So Juan, I think what's interesting in this from a real estate investor's perspective, forget how to get it. What are the different strategies you could have done within this property, and what could have the profits look like had it been taken over by a real estate investor?
Yeah, and an investor there could have easily done an ovation, right? Because you guys, what you folks did was basically had the opportunity to get in front of the homeowner and allowed uh, for the listing to happen, where then she discovered that 80,000, but she already had given up, right? Because the attorney says, let it go. I personally, when I deal with these type of cases, although they tell me that they have an attorney and they're working with it, I'm persistent, and I do get in front of both the attorney and also the homeowner and let them know what their options are. When I'm able to do that, I obviously, that's where you discover, like, hey, there are other options to get you some additional cash out of this deal. Just because you're in bankruptcy doesn't mean that there is no capital that you can take advantage of. So easily you can do, depending on the condition of the property and an equity in the deal, because this one had equity in the deal, and most people think that because it's in bankruptcy the deal doesn't have equity, and that's so far from the truth. I mean, we see the data where it shows like there's people that have 50% equity in deals
Oh, yeah.
plus, right?
Steve, that one California case, how much was left on the table? It's like 700 grand that the person
Right.
walked away from, not
Yeah.
knowing. And I think it's important. Maybe we should share, what are we talking about? Why can they get the money? They're in bankruptcy, right? Didn't they give the property to the trustee? And in this scenario, and 97% of them, the trustee does something very specific, and it's a matter of public record. Take notes here. Steve, what happens when the trustee does what they do, and what do we call that?
Yeah, so this is actually pretty sad, right? Lady is an elderly lady again. Um, she she filed for bankruptcy, but her attorney kind of didn't help her, screwed up the filing. I don't know what he did. I didn't really dig into it. She called similarly, agent had called around asking if she wanted to do something. She saw us in bankruptcy. Oh yeah, the bank told me they can sell me the property, so on and so forth. And when we looked into it, the house had already foreclosed. So this was a lady who was on a fixed income. She owed about $300,000 on her property that was left on the mortgage. The ARV on that property was in Sacramento. That ARV was close to 950. $950,000. She didn't know what to do. It already got foreclosed on, and she ended up, I think, just walking away. So she lost $500,000 on that deal, and all she had to do was sell it. Again, a real estate investor, if somebody had jumped in on this and found out, right, what could they have done? And really, which most of you know how to solve, right? You have the skill set to do this. The biggest issue with most people in bankruptcy, she just didn't know where to go. She didn't know what to do. She didn't have resources.
And what's super, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just say, if she had the resource of figuring out, like, do you have family? Like, $500,000. I think one of us could have figured out what to do with $500,000 in that property, figure out where this lady should move to or could go to. And the issue was she just didn't know what to do.
Yep. So think about this, folks. The person files bankruptcy. There's what we just called an automatic stay, meaning none of the creditors can talk to this person. By law, they are not allowed to. So credit card companies, medical companies, student loan companies, mortgage companies, anybody that she owes money to cannot communicate with her whatsoever. Many of them would like to. The banks would like to, in some cases, like, hey, let's work something out, but they don't. And the banks are so bass backwards, upside down, overloaded. They just don't have the time to do what we can all do because we're normal people, we're not banks. The trustee, at some point, as we talked about, 97% of the time, abandons the asset from the bankruptcy. It's very important. They file something called a no distribution report in the public records with the court. It goes into websites. They'll talk about that perhaps in another session. But at that moment in time, that property now pops out of the bankruptcy. It is now back in the lap of the homeowner. Most often, they're not even aware that that's the situation. One. Two, if they have equity, they don't realize that they can sell that home and keep the money. Now, normally in a Chapter 7, the trustee says, do you have any assets? You got to turn them all over. Well, and that's true. But in this case, the trustee then said the property is no longer in the bankruptcy. She can do whatever she wants to with that property and sell it. And you guys can structure the deal. If you want to give her some walking away money, in some of these cases, they even split the proceeds were so huge, they felt obligated to help these poor old ladies out. And they would do such a thing. But in most cases, that equity is absolutely there for the taking. Yes, sir. Question.
I wanna break this down because ladies and gentlemen, the information being shared here is incredibly valuable, very high level stuff, and this may go over people's heads. So let's distinguish the difference between a foreclosure on a property and bankruptcy, right? Because I'm sure in a lot of people's heads, they're just associating, okay, somebody's in bankruptcy, a house is in bankruptcy. Like you said, oh, that house there's no equity, there's no money to be made here. The bank, they own the property, right? If it's a bank foreclosure, everybody says, don't even waste any time on this deal, right? You're not going to be able to wholesale a deal from the bank. So somebody files for bankruptcy, the automatic stay is put in place. They have a 90 to 200 day period of redemption, right, where they can figure out their finances, right? But no creditors can harass them during this period. Where does the foreclosure come into play? When does the bank say, hey, we're going to foreclose this house?
Great question. Really, really good question. So, we've seen deals, for instance, I've seen deals where the foreclosure was like 11 o'clock in the morning and people filed bankruptcy at 9 a.m. And you know what? It stopped the foreclosure. The banks are legally not allowed to continue that foreclosure because the minute you file that petition of bankruptcy, everything stops. That moment, everything. So the banks, what do? How do they? So in order for them to now, I don't want to go too deep into this because it starts going into like operations. Here's how the banks operate, right? have silos, people doing collections, people doing foreclosures, right? Different groups. The minute it hits bankruptcy, it goes to the bankruptcy group. So the bankruptcy group now controls that. They need to work out how it gets out of bankruptcy so it go back to foreclosure. Well, you'd think it would take 30, 69 days. Those groups don't talk very well and don't communicate very well. So it takes a while for it to get from bankruptcy out of bankruptcy and back in. Typically it's supposed to be about 60 days, 60 to 90 days where they file relief of the stay and then they start foreclosure. But again, they have to start it over again. So if it's a legal process or if it's a they don't start from the beginning, but they have to reinitiate everything, which takes 45, 60 days. So when you look at the time somebody files bankruptcy to the time they could get back into foreclosure, I would guess it's about, I don't know. I would say it's about 4 months, 3, 4 months, maybe 5 months on average. So you have about that time to figure out something, and then it goes back through the foreclosure. In some cases, like we find out, the bank doesn't even bother to try to get it out of bankruptcy. They just leave it. Well, if they just leave it, it's perpetually in an automatic stay and they don't foreclose. It just sits there and it gets lost in the shuffle. We see that a lot.
So the bank has to
Yep.
file a
So,
motion to put it back into foreclosure.
Yes, even in a 13. So in a 13, what people do is it's sort of a tactic is they file so you can't choose. You have to fill out what's called a means test and they say you're a 13 or you're a 7 based on how much money you make. And then if you're in a 13 for instance, we've seen guys go on 18 months, 2 years trying to put a plan together of how they're repaying. Meanwhile, they're not paying the mortgage, they're not paying their arrearages, and it's just sitting there with an automatic stay and nobody's doing anything. And they have another 18 months they're not making payments on, and it's just sitting there. And so we see, so it is a tactic for people, which you have to understand, but at the same time, these are properties people can't afford.
yeah, and so another question came up, which is perfect timing for this. So, if there's a trustee involved, can a real estate agent or an investor talk to the debtor? 100% yes, as long as you're not a creditor, meaning they owe you money as a bank or whatever, you can talk to them. Now, the caveat, if the trustee has not yet abandoned the asset, you can't just go buy it directly from the homeowner because it's still part of the bankruptcy. That's why this data point, this flag is vital in your process. But at the same time, it's not inconceivable to say to the trustee, hey, I'm interested in buying this property. And I submit an offer to you. But again, that's the needle in the haystack. The haystack is the gold mine. The haystack is where it's all at. And so just paying attention to what's going on in public records. And when that asset gets abandoned, and again, you can talk to the homeowner in advance. It doesn't matter. There's no-nos about business people talking to these consumers in bankruptcy. And you would be shocked at how little they know. The other play that we thought were geniuses, we're pretty smart guys. We thought, okay, why don't we talk to the bankruptcy attorneys, right? They're kind of the hub of the wheel. The bigger attorneys in your local markets, you'll find, if there's 50, 80, 100 bankruptcy attorneys, percent of them have most of the deals. It's the old 80, 20, 10 rule, right? Pareto's principle. You talk to them, get away, kid, you bother me. They couldn't be bothered, even though we figured out a way that we could get them paid a second time as the attorney by the bank in most of these cases. And again, they're like, meh. So it's the consumer that has everything to gain and everything to lose in these situations, and just understanding their scenario. And again, by the way, without getting too deep on this stuff, all the information is in their bankruptcy schedules. How much they owe, how much they make, what all their expenses are, it's all there. You can literally read, it's like reading the tea leaves of the consumer or reading their palm. It's amazing, man. It blows our mind to this day. Sorry, Steve. I keep jumping in.
No, all good.
Yeah.
I got a question real quick here.
Fire away.
I just took that note. Okay, so why is it that some of these sellers are deciding to walk away when they really do have equity on the table? Like, what is their thought process? I know that you said that maybe the trustee is giving them the wrong information. They have an attorney that's telling them, it would just, there's nothing you can do. But, I mean, it's just hard for me to understand, like, why would this person be in that mindset, thinking like they can't get anything from this? Like, all hope is gone.
'Cause nobody tells them, not their attorney, and certainly not. By the way, the trustee represents the creditors. The trustee in a bankruptcy, they're fiduciaries to the creditors, so they don't give a, pardon me, damn with the homeowner. They really don't. Sometimes they feel bad about them, or what. They've got their job to do. They've got 100 cases a month pouring in. They got to cycle them. The attorneys, oftentimes, they're not getting paid a ton of money. They run these bankruptcy shops. They have paralegals that fill out the schedules. They file them in the court. Next, bring on the next one. They don't really want to spend a lot of time talking to the consumer because they have billable hours. Normally, the bankruptcy attorneys get paid a flat fee. They're not getting paid $500 an hour to consult with the consumer. So the poor consumer knows absolutely nothing. And as this is going on, they're told, hey, your debt has been discharged. That $300,000 mortgage on your $500,000 house, it's discharged. You no longer owe any money on the property. And they're thinking, okay, well, the house is done. And many of them think the house is now out of my control, not realizing it's back in their lap 97% of the time because the trustee abandons the asset from the estate. It is mind-numbing how often that happens. We were shocked. We were like, what in the hell is going on here? These guys are not selling these properties. We would bring them deals on a silver platter. You could put 20, 30, 40 grand into the estate, Mr. and Mrs. Trustee, and more money in your pocket. No, I couldn't. My judge won't let me do it. And that's the 160-year-old industry known as bankruptcy.
It's flat out ignorance. Flat out ignorance. That's what you're learning here.
Right.
More than most people. I mean, the deals we got involved with, it was just as simple as the agents went out and said, "Hey, do you know how much your house is worth?" People were like, "Wait, I'm in bankruptcy." I mean, they just put a little postcard said, "If you're in bankruptcy, do you know how much your house is worth?" So people said, "Hey, tell me." They're like, "Oh, I had no idea." Right? They're the last thing they're worried about is their house. They're not thinking about it. They have no clue.
So
They have
they
no
get in
clue.
bankruptcy and they think that like they lose everything. They lose their
Yeah,
assets. That's like the thought process. They don't have any.
yeah.
They don't have any
Chapter 7
liquidity.
liquidation. I'm giving up all my assets. Unbeknownst to them, many of them are back in their lap again with the
Okay,
onus
but
on them to do so.
what what constitutes somebody getting their assets back to them? Like why don't they just automatically lose everything?
Well, so
It's
the trustee abandons so the trustee says, okay, I'm not selling this house. It's got an exemption or whatever. And, for example, in Florida, we have homestead exemption. That's 100% of the property is exempt. In other states, there's percentages. So even there, the trustee could even still sell it and put some money, but they don't want to be bothered with the
So
paperwork
the
and the
trustee is
challenge.
not financially incentivized, and they have no fiduciary.
They are financially incentivized. That's the
and they
part
have
that
a
blows our
fiduciary.
mind.
But then that doesn't make any sense because if they
It
have a
makes
fiduciary,
no sense. Thank you very much. And trust me, if we had just thought about this, I would agree. 14 years we did this, and it was, oh man, these guys are stupid.
So here's the reason the only reason we can come up with is they do have a fiduciary. They are financially incentivized for this. So all of the things make it so that they should be able to make money off these. Really, it just comes down to they're just like, well, these poor people filed bankruptcy and they have equity in their house, and I don't want to kick them out. It's fine, whatever. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
walk away from it, and they let them kind of deal with it at the back end. The problem with that is that the attorney's not telling them, hey, guess what? The trustee walked away. This is
Yeah.
your house again.
Yeah. Great news. Great news. You've got all the equity in your home because again, they filed the bankruptcy, next file. They're not even involved with it. They don't care.
so for the people that are
Abandoned.
hearing
Okay, case has been
these new
dismissed. Goodbye.
terms,
Next.
the trustee represents the bank or the creditor,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So essentially, the bank's representative is saying, "Oh well, I feel bad for them because they have a bunch of equity. We're just going to let them figure it out." And then when they walk away, I mean, what is the thought process there? They're thinking like, "Oh well, I guess the bank's just going to take this from me."
Yeah. So from the trustee standpoint, they just say, "Hey, the bank has recourse. Once the bankruptcy's over, they have recourse. They can go foreclose and get the person's home back and whatever." The whole purpose of bankruptcy is to get a fresh start. That's not getting a fresh start.
No.
You're getting a worse start because you now have a foreclosure because you didn't do anything. So it is broken. It is a broken system. It's the way it's gone for years and years and years and years. And like Patrick said, we've been involved with it, and we've seen the last 14, 15 years this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
This opportunity is here. It's right for the taking. There are a lot of opportunities within this realm that people are just not looking at.
Yeah.
So
No,
I mean,
so one of the
I gotta put this out there because this does come to mind. I apologize, but I gotta say this. But man, this is very powerful knowledge that we're learning right now, and you gotta be really mindful about what you do with this, because if we go back to what we were just talking about the other week, where essentially people are getting the deeds from these people, you know, because I mean they think they're gonna get nothing. Like they think they've lost their house. That's their mindset. That's the mentality. So I mean they might very well accept $1,500, $1,000, $500, you know, to sign right here at the dotted line, and that's their deed. Like people probably do that. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I was responding to somebody. Steve, could you answer that?
So
These people think they're getting nothing. They think that they've lost it all. And you say, hey, just sign here for $500 or $1,000. They're going to sign. They want to get that cash.
essentially, to some degree, yes.
Jeez, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not listening to this, I mean, this is a generational lick right here. Truly. Like, this is a crazy opportunity. And you got to understand the psychology behind why these people are in the situation to begin with. And, like, they really think, like, I've lost it all. Like there's nothing I can get out of this. You know, there's nothing here. And you can be generous.
Yeah.
You can offer them, you know, even half of what their house is worth, and still make a
Absolutely.
lot of money.
Yes. Now here's something that Steve said earlier, which is even more important. So forget the ones that the bank is going to foreclose on because they're in default. 75% of the homeowners that are in bankruptcy, let's just talk chapter 7, forget the 13s. That's a whole different strategy. But in the 7s, 75% of them are current on their loans, but they can't afford the house. They've stopped paying their credit cards. They've gotten rid of one of their cars. They've pulled their kids out of private school. The last thing that they're holding on to is their home. They don't want to lose their home. It will ultimately go into default. We look at their schedules. Their debt to income ratio is 80%. There's no way they're going to keep the house. But in those cases, you're not even going to see it on any of the pre-foreclosure lists because they're not in flipping default. Those are the cases where the trustee, again, they abandon the property 7% of the time. They abandon the property from the estate. And because they're current, the bank isn't going to foreclose. So they're just sitting there now, choking on their payment. Somebody got sick, somebody died, they lost some income. Those are the golden eggs right there. Yes, Steve.
Yeah. That's the big thing, right? That you know, want to clarify with everybody. 25% of what we're talking about are people who are trying to stop a foreclosure. They're in some type of default, whatever. The other 75%, they're not in foreclosure at all whatsoever. They are current on their mortgage, but they're in distress because they cannot afford. To Patrick's point, they stopped paying credit cards, they stopped paying this, they stopped paying that, they just stopped everything to pay their mortgage. They've been borrowing everything, and now all of a sudden they're like, holy crap, I'm getting to the point I can't pay my mortgage anymore. I don't know what to do. I'm going to file bankruptcy and try to figure it out.
Or file it again, by the way. That happens too.
So these people have equity. What should they have done? They should have sold their house, but they didn't, right? There are people who have been current on their mortgage. They should have sold their house, but they didn't. They think that something, manna from heaven or whatever's going to happen, that's just all just going to solve their problems, and it doesn't solve their problems. And what they need to do is they need to talk to professionals, real estate investors,
Yes.
real estate agents, to say, hey guys, you can't afford this anymore, but let me help you. I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to, in some case, do a novation. In some case, it might be a wholesale flip. I'm going to get you money in right now. I'm going to help you find a rental. I'm going to, like, you know, that's what the community is about, right? There are people who do rentals. These people need to figure out where to move. how do you work within a community to figure out, hey, I've got somebody in, this county who wants to move, right? They want to stay close because their kids go to a certain school. They think, oh, if I filed bankruptcy, I can't get, I can't rent an apartment, which is not always true, but they're trying to figure out what to do. That's where this community helps. That's where real estate investors help. That's where agents help, is finding these people places to go. And the upside is now you have an asset that is current, doesn't face foreclosure, might have some equity, and that's where the deal starts happening.
Yeah. And by the way, you also have to think, well, why would the homeowner, aside from the fact their attorney doesn't tell them anything, no offense to attorneys that do, there are some that are holistic practitioners, and the trustee doesn't tell them anything. Case study number one: wife loses husband. He dies from cancer. She's got kids. She's just completely distraught. She's not thinking, hey, if I'm smart, I might be able to liquidate my house and keep the equity, even though I don't know anything about bankruptcy. That's one scenario. Another one is the wheeler dealers that are out there and they got choked up on these properties. And in those cases, those guys may be upside down, but there's still ways to make money on the short sale piece. We talked about that in our last episode. But it's, why does the person get into bankruptcy? Then there's what we call the serial filer. And these are the real wheeler dealers that, we see it a fair amount of the time. Husband files bankruptcy, which, by the way, the husband and wife, if they're still, they don't both have to be in the bankruptcy. The husband can file bankruptcy. And then somebody asks, how long does it take a Chapter 7? Let's call it a year. It can be shorter, it could be longer, but let's give that time frame. And then the debt's discharged. Now they're racking up more debt, and the bank wants to foreclose because, of course, the bank says, you've discharged my debt, but I want my collateral. I'm going to start foreclosure again. Now the wife files bankruptcy, and that goes on for another year. And for a while, these serial filers, the husband would file bankruptcy again after that. We've seen them where there were 7 bankruptcies filed in one particular case. That has been stopped for the most part. And even, Steve, that one you mentioned where the bankruptcy was filed just before a foreclosure, there's even new procedures in that. And if you want to share on that, or maybe at another date, but sometimes that doesn't work anymore. So that use the bankruptcy as the ace up the sleeve doesn't always help. But all of these people that we're talking about, for the most part, are potential opportunities. And it's a huge number. It's 500,000 properties. After the Great Recession, it was over 1 million a year were filing bankruptcy. South Florida alone, I don't know how many of you are in Florida, but I just moved to North Florida. When we were operating this on an average ongoing basis, there were 30,000 properties in bankruptcy in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County at any given time. 30,000 properties in bankruptcy at any given time. That's amazing when you think about it.
Patrick, I want to ask you really quickly. You said something about, after they file for bankruptcy, you said that their debt gets dismissed.
Discharged, yep.
Discharged, pardon me.
Yeah, so the Chapter 7, the whole point of that is that for them to get the fresh start. So credit cards wiped out, medical bills wiped out, mortgages wiped out, car loans wiped out. Now, by the way, the whole purpose.
Let me pause right there. So that you get the credit card bills are wiped out, the mortgage is wiped out. So you own 100% equity in the asset now?
No.
You own the house, but the bank still has the note. Remember we talked about the mortgage, the note? Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, yeah, let me correct it. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
So let me correct it slightly because it is technical. The loan is wiped out.
Yeah.
You no longer personally owe the loan. So when you borrowed $300,000 for that house, when you file bankruptcy, that loan you are no longer personally obligated to pay that back. Any loan you have when you file bankruptcy is gone. Car loan, your house loan, your jewelry loan, everything, credit cards, everything is wiped out, gone, finished, done. However, it's discharged. However, the mortgage, which is the lien against the property, is not a financial instrument, meaning it's not a loan. It is a lien against the property. The mortgage is not discharged. It, quote unquote, survives bankruptcy. Therefore, when the bank says, hey, you owe me money, not personally, but against this lien, you still have to pay the full amount of whatever is owed. So you don't have equity in the house. you have to pay against the mortgage because it's still lien. It doesn't get removed. That's how that works.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, but I want to make
So
sure that, because I'm
therefore,
sure
and
I'm not the
that's what
only person
entitles
that has this question here, because these are new concepts, right?
Yeah.
This mortgage is still attached as a lien to the property, right? The bank can't come after you personally, but they can foreclose on the property because of that lien.
You got it.
that's their collateral on that mortgage. And they're perfectly, and that's why they file a motion relief automatic stay. And the judge almost 100% of the time grants that motion. Like, yep, you're entitled. You're the creditor. You're entitled to pursue this property now that it's back out of the bankruptcy protection.
So that's why last week I said, if I can teach you one thing, the most important thing to understand, the difference between a deed, a mortgage, and a loan,
Mhm.
because those three things are the keys to everything in real estate. And if you can understand those three things, it is the key to unlocking all of this stuff.
Hmm.
That's why.
That's why we got to clarify this, because these are definitely newer concepts.
Yes.
So, how does the property stay out of the hands of the creditor after bankruptcy if there's still a mortgage on the property, right? The mortgage doesn't get dismissed, right? So that's
Right.
still attached as a
Right.
lien. If they can't come
Correct.
after the individual personally, how can you avoid that? Is there any way that you can keep the property outside of the creditor's hands, or no?
No, they then, once it comes out of bankruptcy, they go foreclose on the mortgage.
They have their rights and they absolutely
Mm.
exercise them. Mhm.
Will
So
the
you've got
So they're
that window. You
right?
got that window between, yeah.
so when they foreclose, they're actually foreclosing on the mortgage because you didn't pay the loan.
But the loan you said is discharged.
In a bankruptcy, yes, but I'm just saying in general concepts, right?
And
When I
that's
have a loan, I have a promissory note that says I'm going to pay you back a
right.
certain amount of money. Don't foreclose on the loan. The way you get your money back on the loan is I go foreclose on the mortgage
Mm-hmm.
so that I can take the property back so I can pay back my loan.
Yeah, and so I think, and I want to be clear, it doesn't extinguish the mortgage, it discharges the debt. I maybe said that unclearly. So I'm the debtor. I owe 300,000. The bankruptcy, I no longer owe 300,000. Yay! The instrument still exists that provides the bank with collateral in the form of that mortgage that allows them legally, which it says in the mortgage, to get the collateral back through a process known as foreclosure. So now here's the
Okay.
thing. Let's
So
say that mortgage here. Here's one more example.
yeah, yeah.
Let's say the mortgage is 350. The house is only worth 300. I want to come in and try and buy it now, even though the debt has been discharged from the debtor. I can't go in and buy it for 150 in that scenario because there's no equity in the property. It would have to be purchased as a short sale and go through that whole process. But many of these cases, it's the opposite. The house is worth 350. The mortgage is 250. There's 100 grand in equity. That's a different scenario. You could go in and say to the bank, I'll pay you your 250. Here, take the 250. I get the house and I'll flip it for 350.
Okay, but would the bank be open to accepting payments or reinstating the loan after bankruptcy?
Yes.
So just hypothetically,
So
right?
they're not reinstating so again, it's very technical, right?
Right, but we
So
got to
when you're
understand this.
yeah, so when you're discharged from your debt, your loan, you no longer have the loan. If you don't reaffirm the debt, which most people don't, I won't get into that. You can't you There is a process to say I still want to pay. Most people don't. So
Or can.
what happens is the it goes into discharge. That's it. And then when you say, "Hey, I want to keep paying," you're technically paying against the mortgage, or you're essentially paying your loan. They just
But
can't call it that, and they can't talk about it because it's illegal because they you no longer have a loan, but that is what you're doing.
well, does the bank accept the payment then? Because do they not care who's making the payment, and will they accept the payment from whoever at that point, and then they will not be able to foreclose because that loan is being satisfied or that mortgage is being satisfied? So could somebody
So
hypothetically go through a bankruptcy and then you offer them, $1,000 or whatever for their house? They'll sign, I guess, the deed to you. Now you own the
up to
property and you go to, okay, I guess, yeah, that's sub two. But they've gone through bankruptcy already.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. That's not
The
considered
bank still
mortgage
the bank
fraud?
still says they're done, but I still have my collateral and I've got my mortgage. What kind of a deal do you want to strike with me? And if
Uh,
it's the mortgage and the collateral, or is it the mortgage and the collateral? Two different scenarios, right?
but at
One
that
has
point,
equity.
the seller already thinks
Again,
that they've lost the house and that there's
oh,
nothing
the
they can
seller
do.
doesn't know what the hell's going on at that point. In most cases, they have no clue.
Yeah.
Birthday boy, man. We got Mr. Liam coming on to join us. This is the birthday boy. He
All
turned
right.
21 today.
Going on.
How you doing,
Hey,
Liam?
happy birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
He's got a question for us he wanted to ask.
Well, I've got a seller going through this right now. She filed Chapter 7 in October and it got completed in February.
Okay.
She, there's like 3 loans on the house as the first position, and it's in sheriff sale, going to sheriff sale, April 21st.
They're crazy. She just filed bankruptcy. She's losing the house to foreclosure.
Yep. She's going through a divorce.
Classic scenario.
First position was 102,000, and then the one bank had 2 liens against it, one for 49 and one for 25, so that's around 166, I think, total. It's probably worth 180 to 200, somewhere in that range. I was just seeing, if you could wipe out, maybe
So-
negotiate those liens or something.
Yeah, in those scenarios, like that's almost, now you're talking kind of close to a short sale, right? So
Yeah.
when it goes to sheriff's sale, second and third position liens are gone, right? The first position lien holder is going to get the property back. Second and third are done. So you could literally say, hey, this is going to sheriff's sale, second and third position lien. I'll give you $6,000, $7,000 for your trouble.
That's exactly what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
Say,
The ways to
you buy from sheriff sale for 102, I can give you this amount right now.
there
Yeah,
are definitely
exactly.
ways to negotiate that, and there are ways to make
Yeah.
money off of it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that they had about 60,000 that they would get. Wouldn't the person that buys it from the sheriff sale inherit those liens through the sheriff deed? They
Nope.
wouldn't inherit. Oh, okay.
All
So
the
that's more
liens are
leverage. That's more leverage then, I guess.
yeah.
So you're
So
saying
Sheriff,
you're saying the second and third position, anybody that's not in first position on this property, if the property goes through bankruptcy, are eliminated. Their liens are no longer on
no,
the
if it
property.
goes to foreclosure,
Foreclosure.
sheriff sale and foreclosure.
So yeah, so we'll take it. So bankruptcy got all the personal liability to those loans. So those 3 loans are all discharged, right? She no longer owes anything personally against those loans. But the 3 liens, the 3 mortgages are still there. So those need to be satisfied. If you go through foreclosure, if the first lien is foreclosing, it wipes out the second and third, meaning they get nothing if nobody bids on the house.
Mhm.
If there's a third party bidder, right, and somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to pay 150," right? This gets into a whole foreclosure discussion. I don't want to go down too far down the rabbit hole, but basically you get paid whatever proceeds get paid the first lien, then it gets paid to the second lien, and then it gets paid to the third lien. So there's enough proceeds, all of them get paid. If there's not enough, then whatever's not paid is removed, and those liens are gone, done, finished out.
So they would be hoping and praying that they get some bids at the sheriff sale.
Yes, which is also why in your position and where you're at, you have a pretty good strategy if you want to buy it.
Yeah.
You might be able to pay the first and short the second and or third, because if it goes to sale, they have no idea what they're going to get. Whereas as a purchase from you guarantees the money.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
That's a good strategy. It's a good strategy.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I think that clears it up. I appreciate it.
Oh my God, too
Yeah,
much
you've
sauce.
got a potential good deal on your
That
hands
was a
there.
great question. Happy birthday, Liam. We love you, man.
Appreciate it. I'll
Yes,
let
sir.
someone else get their time.
No, I think that was a
You just turned
fantastic.
21. I'm celebrating the 43rd anniversary of my 20th.
That was a great scenario because that's a real
Yeah, yeah.
real scenario. So, wow. Is there anything you could do about that first position lien holder? Can you get them to settle as well, or typically no?
No. So if the property is worth say 200 and they're owed, I don't know what he said, I think 140. They're
Yeah,
going to get, so that's why they're foreclosing. They're going to get their money.
yeah.
But you really can't negotiate with the first lien holder. The
Unless it's a
second lien,
short sale, in which case you can negotiate it down to market value. But
if the property was only worth 120, it's a different story. What we're talking about, again, these are all strategies, and I don't want to go too far down.
Go down the rabbit hole, man. That's what we're here to do. We're here to go. We're
Like,
here to learn.
essentially, here's the deal. First lien forecloses. What they have to do is they have to bid. They have to bid total debt. So if they're owed, let's say they're owed 150, that's all they can bid. They can't bid above 150. So they're going to put in their bid at 150. If nobody bids above the 150, they get their property back, and the second lien holder gets zero. The third lien holder gets zero. The first lien holder takes the property back free and clear of all liens, and they go sell it. And now they can sell it for a profit.
Oh,
as an REO
Okay.
or at auction.
That's a whole different
so
animal.
you're saying
Now,
that the first position lien holder would go and bid what they're owed?
that's all they're
Yeah.
allowed to bid. Not allowed to bid over that.
Oh, okay, and that's by default
It's not
because they're
it's
already
not free
owed.
auction. Yeah, this is not free auction style. They have to bid. They can only bid a total debt. They have to prove that that's what's owed.
Mm-hmm.
Any foreclosure anywhere, you cannot bid above it. Now, let's take a scenario where they're owed 150, they put a bid at 150, and somebody comes in and bids 155. So now the first lien holder says, great, I'm getting paid in full, I'm out. So they get paid their 150. The other 5,000, guess where it goes to?
Second position.
Second position gets $5,000. They're owed 60 or 50 or 29 or 30. They only get 5. That's it. They're done after that. They take their 5 and they're finished.
Yep.
So that's what I was saying from Liam's standpoint. He's got some leverage with the second and third to get rid of those liens. Say, hey, look, guys, you might get 0. You might get $5,000. You might get nothing. I'm gonna offer you this. Let's just take it and walk away. Pay off the 150. Give the other two guys 1,500, 2,000, whatever you want to do, and you're done.
That's it. So
And
to that
and
point,
rabbit. Oh, sorry, Juan. Go ahead.
sorry, to that point, and Liam did put it on the chat. This is why you have to be careful when you guys are doing second, third position loans on deals, because you will get wrecked. If God forbid the first, is default, they're gonna get their money, and then you're just gonna get scraps, if anything. You
Yep.
might just get
And a
nothing.
little bit of anecdotal information here. That's why over the years in about 13 states, HOAs are what are called super priority liens. They are in first position above a mortgage. Well, why is that? Well, HOAs were getting clobbered and whole communities were becoming deteriorated because they couldn't afford to do the maintenance. They couldn't do what they had to do because they were getting wiped out in third, fourth position. So in certain states like Florida, a law was passed. It was the Safe Harbor Act that allowed the HOA to be in super priority position. And that's why there's a whole other business about acquiring HOA liens in those states, because now you can foreclose on the property. Now, it doesn't wipe out the first mortgage, but it creates a whole other subset of things. And that is a rabbit hole we can't go down on this call. But
No,
yeah,
not,
man,
not on
there's
this one.
a
That's
lot
another
of
one.
moving parts. Of this.
That's another one.
That's what we're here for.
Without
Yeah.
going down the rabbit hole too far, the HOA liens can supersede like whoever's in second position. They become prioritized.
First
after
position.
First.
The only thing that supersedes the HOA in a super priority lien state is taxes,
Wow.
tax liens. Yeah.
So it would be
So one
advantageous
thing,
for somebody to go start a HOA and have these people, have to pay them dues, and if they fall behind, now they get to
A lot of
foreclose
people
that
yeah,
buy
house.
HOA liens and then they own the deed and they'll foreclose. They'll take the deed to the property, even though the first mortgage is still there. This is a classic sub two scenario. I buy the HOA lien, it's $5,000. I now take the property, I paint it up, put fresh carpet in, I rent it for $3,000 a month. After 2 months, I'm playing with house money now. And if I, can keep it rented for another year, home run.
Uh-oh.
the only thing an HOA doesn't, an HOA can foreclose, but they cannot wipe out
Right.
loans.
Exactly.
But they can foreclose, take the property, like Patrick said, rent it out, and get all their money back first.
Yes.
That's what super priority means.
Okay, but when you foreclose on a property, does it have to go to a auction, or you could just take possession of the property?
It goes to auction. As an HOA, it goes to auction. If somebody it happens all the time in Florida, we see it all the time. People screw this up in Florida all the time. They call me and said, "Steve, can you help me?" I'm like, "Nope." So what happens is HOA say, "Hey, I'm foreclosing on my $10,000 that I'm owed," and somebody always mistakes the HOA and they think it's the mortgage and they put a bid in at 70 grand. They're just calling their buddies, going, "Woohoo! I just got a $300,000 property for 70 grand. Look at this." And you know what happens? If the HOA takes their 10 grand and says, "Thank you very much," they give the 60 grand back to the state and they say, "Lien is cleared." And now the first goes and says, "Oh, I'm foreclosing."
Yeah. I'm now in
Yep.
first position again. Yay.
Yep. So they might be a
Happens
mortgage of
all the
200,
time.
$300,000 on top of the HOA, right? So people
What happens
bought
to
the
that
HOA
60
lien.
grand that's sitting at the
Ah,
state?
no,
That's
Other-
the real
no,
question
no,
That's
we
no,
another
gotta get
topic
no,
for
into,
no,
another
man.
day,
no,
my
cut it.
That's
man.
the real
Drop it,
Let it
drop
go.
it.
question
No,
that
no, no,
Let it
everybody
no,
go.
wants
no,
to
no.
know
We
about.
can't answer
That's
that.
called
We
an
cannot
HOA
answer that. We
surplus.
cannot.
That's the
We
surplus
can't
We
cover
fund.
can't
that
talk
today.
about that.
That's
No,
the
we can't
surplus
talk about that
funds.
here. We can't. We
That's
can't talk about
that's
that.
gonna be
Wow, ladies and
that's
gentlemen.
gonna be our surplus live stream.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. We're
It
gonna have
gets
to do
deep,
that
Yeah.
man.
separately.
This rabbit hole is deep, ladies and gentlemen. I
Yeah,
hope that
that's
Oh, yeah.
everybody's enjoying tonight's stream. I want to tap in with the chat to see real quick because we got over 50 people joining us tonight. I thank everybody for coming to join us tonight. How's everybody enjoying tonight's stream? I'm getting enriched. I mean, I'm taking notes. I hope that you all are taking notes and participating and paying attention because I mean, there's been some serious game shared tonight.
What did I say? What did I say to you earlier, John? Get the Adderall. Get the Adderall. Stay focused. Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. There's a lot of sauce, man. It's 40 years of of transactions. You see some shit.
For real. Wow, that
I'm heading to
that
Thailand. I'm heading to Thailand tomorrow, so I got to go to bed early tonight.
oh my gosh, I know that's gonna be a great experience. I hope that you enjoy yourself out there.
I'm just glad I'm heading over the Pacific Ocean and not over the Atlantic Ocean. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't go if I was going that direction.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man. Real quick, so for people that want to try to find out, where these deals are at, where do they search for these types of leads? Like, where can they find these leads?
Yeah, really good question. So the bankruptcy is a little bit more difficult. So right now, I don't know that there's really a good source. We've actually tried to build some proprietary data. It's still in the initial phases, but out there for a lot of the data sellers right now that are out there, they do sell data. If you look, you probably just don't pay attention to it. They will tell you if it's in bankruptcy. You'll notice that's in bankruptcy.
Who's
There
they?
is
For
any
example,
data provider. If you go to any data
foreclosure.com.
provider any data provider you're buying from, they'll have a bankruptcy indicator. You probably just didn't even notice it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, foreclosure.com as an example, we're an affiliate of theirs because we worked with them for 20 odd years. That's how we started HomePath for Fannie and all that stuff. They've got a subscription model, and you can search from pre-foreclosure, bankruptcy, short sale, tax liens, and you can parse that out by area, pull down that list, and off you go to the races. And then there's the deeper dive. So now you found your 15, 20 nuggets that you want to go after. Somebody mentioned in their Pacer public access to court electronic records, you do your deep dive on those, and that's where you find out, okay, here's what's happening, and you'll see where the motions for relief have been filed, and no distribution reports from the trustee, and all those things. That's something we could teach on another day. And John, we'll talk with you about that. We've got some ideas about extended courses that we can do, but we'll have to
It'll
charge a little bit
be
of money for
worth
it.
its weight in gold, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, right now, I mean, I've seen it in data we've pulled. Like, I can find out who the owner is. I can find out if they're in bankruptcy. And then if you go to the public access for Pacer and you go Pacer, you can find everything out about that case and about that person, about that property. Probably don't need much out of that, but it does help. You can kind of figure out where somebody's financial well-being is, right? You have to disclose all of that in bankruptcy, to bring it back full circle here. So, but from that standpoint, most data providers tell you if it's in bankruptcy.
Hmm. So I mean,
Most people just ignore it.
this is really insane, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to understand, like, there's gonna be a select, very very niche, maybe 0.1% that watch this video tonight and have some of the thoughts that are racing through my mind right now. And if that is you, oh my goodness, you got to take action, because this I'm telling you, I feel like this is that ticket. It pairs so beautifully with the information that we just learned. I mean, you got to understand, these people are of the impression that they've lost all their assets. They really have nothing to lose, nothing to gain at this point. And I mean, you offer them anything, why wouldn't they take it? Why wouldn't they take it? With that mindset, why wouldn't they accept $1,000, $2,000, $3,000? You now own the deed to the property. If they still have a mortgage on the property, you turn around and you either refinance or sell. You capture all that equity after paying off the creditors, that still have the liens on the property, the lien holders, and now you make the difference. Are we really understanding what is being shared here tonight, ladies and gentlemen? I need to see in the chat, like, if people are really understanding. I feel like there were a couple people that had that light bulb moment tonight. And I want to try to bring up, and I'm sorry to cut you off here, Juan, but after Juan goes, I want to try to bring up Adrian, man, because I feel like he's really doing a great job with a similar strategy. We definitely got to have him on to talk about this, because he goes after these people that are in pre-foreclosure, but I don't know if he's doing anything with people that have already filed bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, like, in this side of things, this is like the real distressed sellers. Like, when you talk about motivated sellers, this is a motivated seller. Like, when you're having a conversation, it isn't like, oh, what can you offer me? Oh, I got 100 offers on the table. No, ain't nobody helping you. Your lawyer is taking you, right, for some money and giving you some whack ass advice, but ain't nobody coming to save you. Your shit's gonna be out on the streets pretty soon. That's what's gonna end up happening. So yeah, it's a completely different conversation. You're the real motivated seller. Like, yeah, you got $1,000, $2,000. You can help me move, right? Like, how can you help me secure an apartment, whatever? Like, what can you do there? Because that's where they're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're saving
It's a
them from a
different.
foreclosure, which is 7 years. It's like breaking a mirror. It's 7 years bad luck
Yeah.
financially. If you take them out early in the bankruptcy, then 24 months, they're probably going to be, assuming they're financially whole again, they're going to be bankable. They can get back into home ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of the pitch, right? Like, you want to let them know, like, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that tunnel is very short. It isn't 7 years or 10 years. We're talking about 18, 24 months. You'll be back and you can buy a brand new property if your financials are back in order. You don't have to damage your credit, right? And the shame of foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that has some real world implications, especially depending on somebody's career, like what they're doing. Like, you cannot get foreclosed on. Some of the people that work in the government, military, like, they cannot get foreclosed on. So
Yep.
That's
right.
Financial industries cannot get foreclosed on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
I mean, you gotta understand, we got the whole profile, like, who actually would apply here. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not seeing enough excitement in this chat right now that these people are really understanding what is being shared with them. Maybe it really is going over their head. Maybe they're not comprehending it because these are very high level concepts. And I feel like you got to really
Yeah.
be in this space for a while. Number one, to understand
Oh,
wholesaling, get your head wrapped around on
Yeah.
how all that works. But then now we're
so
talking about a whole nother world here that's way bigger than wholesaling. That's why I
Mhm.
love to say REI Rev is so much bigger than wholesaling, ladies and gentlemen. This is real estate. We're solving real problems and we're helping real people. That's what we are doing here.
so John, I'm going to give you some testament about that. So when foreclosure.com was one of the companies and we spun off, we launched BK Global. We hired the biz dev guy from foreclosure.com. He's 60 years old now, so he was in his 50s. He Bright guy. It took him, Steve, how many explanations of the same thing did we have to Steven, I won't say his last name. If I have to explain this to you one more time, I'm going to murder you because you don't get. And I mean, it must have been 30 times, like in 4 weeks. Like, if I have to
It's
explain this, my
this
man.
information is unbelievable. I mean, this is
So
it's insane to me. Like it logically doesn't make sense. You know, if you look at the situation, logically it doesn't make sense. But you have to also understand these people are operating at a completely different frequency. These people are in an emotional state. The logic has already left the chat, ladies and gentlemen. They are not thinking logically anymore. This is a pure emotional state, and they're feeling like they've lost everything. There's a lot of shame and guilt, like Juan was talking about here a second ago, attached to going through a bankruptcy, facing a foreclosure. You know that a lot of people might discount. You know, and so if we understand this, we understand like where these people are at mentally. We're better equipped to help them than other investors that are looking at this have no idea how this process even works to begin with and pass up on the deal altogether.
If they even see it, they could be tripping over it. It's over here. They don't even realize it's a deal because it's not in default. It's not showing up on all the other stuff. It's showing up in bankruptcy if you're buying that data, but that's it.
And most of the time you buy bankruptcy data, it's there's a lot of information. You don't know how to decipher whether there is property involved or not in most of that data. So there could be a ton of filings where they don't have the assets that you guys are looking for, right? They might have a boat, they might have a car, but unless you're in the repo game or or flipping cars or flipping boats, then the data doesn't serve you. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's so difficult to navigate through the bankruptcy data.
yeah, the important thing here for everybody is bankruptcy shouldn't be scary, right? A deal is a deal is a deal. You need to look at the deals. What you're looking at bankruptcy is knowing nobody else is looking at that. And that you have ways to navigate in there are some issues, right? There are some things in bankruptcy, but you have the right resources here in this community of how to navigate it should something come up. The first thing is the deal. If it's a good deal and you want to do it and it's in bankruptcy, or it's in bankruptcy and a good deal, go for it. That's the key takeaways here.
And then real quick, let's just highlight again for them what actually makes this a good deal.
So in bankruptcy, it's really anything, right? It's whatever your avatar, whatever you're looking at in your avatar, that's what this is, right? There are ways to navigate. What we're saying is if you're looking at it, we're trying to flip the deal a little bit, right? Having a hard time finding a deal because you're looking at defaults, right? Everybody's looking for defaults, and you've got a million wholesalers after the same property, the same this, the same that. Here's where bankruptcy plays in. Here's a property that's in bankruptcy. And when you go look and you know that that person's in financial distress, you know they have to leave. They are a motivated seller. There's nobody in this room and nobody out there that is calling that person to say, I can help you. They're trying to navigate this on their own. And there's not just one of those, right? There's 20,000 a month across the United States, 20,000 people a month like this across the United States. Every single month, 20,000 of these people who are just sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to ride it out. And being able to find those people is the key, right? The deals are there. The deals are right for the taking. It's first finding they're in bankruptcy. Second, finding is there equity. Most of those people don't know there's equity. right? If that's your avatar, if your avatar's fix and flip, if your whatever it is, it still applies in here.
Mhm.
It's first finding that deal, which again, you're not going to find on the default, right? You're not going to find on the pre-foreclosure lists. You're going to find most of these people in bankruptcy.
Yep.
That makes sense?
It's a different list, ladies and gentlemen. That's what he's trying to get at here, is that these people are not falling behind. You said 75% of people in bankruptcy they are not delinquent, right? They're not
Right.
falling behind with their mortgage company. The mortgage company
They're
isn't
not in
about to put
pre-foreclosure.
they're not in pre-foreclosure. That's the difference here. They're in bankruptcy, but they're not in pre-foreclosure, right? And that's number one of the biggest identifiers, to see if this
That's
person
correct.
might be.
And the
Dude,
misconception
fucking
that
bro.
people don't understand, most people, it is the opposite. They immediately, if you hear bankruptcy, you immediately think, oh, those people are behind on their payments, these people are upside down, all these, you have that misconception, but it's not. And we've seen the data, and I've seen a couple of a shitload of deals where we have the percentages of how much equity they actually have, so you can characterize like, oh shit, there's 57%, 67%, 70% equity still in this deal. That's stupid. And they're in bankruptcy. But it could be completely other. They could be, bro, they may have a business that's going under. That has
Here,
nothing
let
to
me
do with, you know what I mean? So
just
yeah, go
this.
ahead,
So
Steve.
we did that equity. We did that delinquency study about 3 years ago. Okay. I've been in the mortgage industry at that point 20 years, and my assumption was always, oh, most of the people are filing bankruptcy to stop a foreclosure because they're delinquent. When I saw that number 3 years ago, I was shocked. I was shocked that 75% of the people are current. I couldn't, I was like, this can't be right. I mean, I did the data myself and I reran the numbers 3 times because I could not believe that that was the number. And the question's always been, hey, what's the right community to take advantage of this? And this is it. This is it.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen. You're here. You're in the right room. It's happening right now. The opportunity is presenting itself right now. How many of these deals do you guys think, are actually like happening on a monthly basis? I know you said there are 20,000 people that are, filing for bankruptcy. I'm assuming that's like just in the United States. But how many of these people that are in that situation actually end up like, you know what, man, just take it, bro. Like, I there's nothing I can do here. It's probably better off with you than it is with me. Or, they sell the house or they do something with it. I mean, how many of those people are actually taking any sort of action?
Right now, none. That's the problem.
Wow. Wow. So the next question I have is like, how many people do you think are even aware of this particular avatar or niche in the first place? Because I've never heard anybody talk about this, to begin with. Everybody talks about pre-foreclosure, right? Everybody knows about pre-foreclosure. But nobody's talking about people that are in bankruptcy that are not in pre-foreclosure.
Well, pre-foreclosure is easy, right? So you can go pull a pre-foreclosure list, which obviously has a property attached. So yes, it's easy to go after that, and you hope that you can do some sort of novation, sub two, have some meat on the bone. But bankruptcy, like I said, it's just that it's more difficult to navigate through the data. Because again, just because you file for bankruptcy doesn't mean that you own a house. You see?
Right.
Okay.
This you all see these all go into pre-foreclosure and foreclosure, so you all see them, but you're
Yeah.
seeing them 4 months from now, 6
Mhm.
months from now, 8 months from now, 10 months from now, when more problems rise up with the house and there are more issues, and that's what you. So you're seeing these. I'm not saying you're not seeing them. You're just
Wow.
seeing them way down in the
After all the
future.
creditors are blowing up their phone, everybody's trying to get their money. They got to be in
Yes.
a different
And
mental space.
and and they're now 4, 5, 6, 8 months delinquent. And guess what? There's a lot less equity because
Mm.
they've stopped paying at that point. We're talking about taking advantage of the equity in the property, right? There are deals
Mhm.
to be had there. Right? That's the thing. You got to understand. People in bankruptcy, they're not being advised of anything. Nobody's telling them about what's your best outcome. That's where you come. That's where real estate invest. Hey, you've got. I mean, Juan, you saw it. Like, hey, here's somebody who's current on their mortgage. They've got $50,000 of equity, and they're just sitting there going, "Oh, I'm just going to be an ostrich, put my head in the sand, and I'll figure it out later." That's where somebody
Is it?
comes and says, "Hey, here's what we could do," right? Because again, they've spent all their money, right?
Mhm.
Credit cards are maxed out, right? They're probably maxed, you know, they're down to one car. They stopped doing everything that they possibly could just so that they can get to this point and say, "Holy crap, I'm about to lose my house. So I'm filing bankruptcy
Yep.
because I'll figure it out." Well, you
Yep.
haven't figured it out in the last 6 or 8 months. What makes you think it's going to change?
And the attorneys that they're using to file, they collected $1,500. I'm gonna be straight up. Like, if you pay me $1,500 and that's all I'm gonna make, my it's volume at that point, right?
Yeah,
Like, I'm just looking for more people that need to file, so I can
yeah.
can continue to collect $1,500. I'm not gonna sit here and help you figure out your real estate and your financials and be your financial advisor and try to get you out of situation
No.
and get it all involved and all that for $1,500. I'm not
In
doing that,
fact,
man.
Juan, you
Turn and
nailed it.
burn.
Fact of the matter is, the attorney is collecting the $1,500. They've got a
Yeah,
staff of 6 or 7 paralegals who are
correct.
doing all the work with the
Doing the
consumer. The
prakata, of
paralegal,
course.
and
Wow.
again, no offense to paralegals,
Yeah,
in some cases, they're
no,
just
right.
somebody who just became a paralegal. They barely
Hmm.
know how to fill out the forms. They're certainly not going to talk to somebody about
Yeah.
restructuring debt or looking at the long range prognosis of your home. You know, they're just, I just need to fill this form out and I hope I don't make a mistake.
Right.
That's
It sounds to
and that's who they're
me.
talking to.
It sounds to me like we need to go and make some friends with the bankruptcy attorneys immediately.
Yeah, so we talked about that,
Yeah.
and that's a smart move. It's not easy to do. They just don't care.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, we
don't care.
talked to a couple of them. We said, dude, I can get you another $1,500 if you just send us your clients. Let us know. We'll talk to them. The bank wants, and these were typically short sales too. The bank will gladly pay you $1,500 more to help have us help do a structured deal. And a lot of them are like, there's thousands of dollars trying to get a new customer. Like, you've got a gold mine, 5,000 here. Reap the rewards again, my man. And no, sorry, we'll do.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So where is this okay, so the bankruptcy data, right? This has to be public record, right? Is this public record? I mean,
Oh,
does everybody have access to this data? Where do we
yeah.
where
So
is this
I'll give
recorded?
I'll give you a for instance. So back when we ran BK Global, one of the things that we did is we bought the data from a bunch of different aggregators. We spent about 16 grand a month buying the data that we would sift through and put out on the website. We had a whole different side of our business. Aside from doing what we're doing today with the trustees and selling properties for them, that's a profitable business for us. We thought, because we said, holy crap, man, 97% of the time they're not selling these properties. And we had about 10,000 agents in our network over the years. So we're like, hey, agents, if you want to pay a subscription so that covers our costs, and it was, I don't know, $69 a month or something, you can get the data in your effective service area. And they were doing that. Of course, COVID came along right at the perfect time, and all that went down. The data can be purchased. And we're buying it nationwide, so yeah, you can
But
look
is it
online, and
free? Is
more
it
than
free
the
though
information's
nationwide?
current.
Um, some of it is, some of it's not. So
Yeah,
some
you
of
can buy it regionally. Yeah,
Yeah, so you can get some of the data for free. So there are different ways to get some of it, but it's not going to, you're going to have to pay for data.
yeah,
Like, you
one way or
know,
the other.
one way or the other, you're paying for data out of this, but there's a variety of ways to do it. But yes,
Or you're
Do
paying for
you
time, right? So if you go to Pacer and poke around, you can find the nuggets too. But now you're spending time, right? So
hmm,
20 minutes to research a file. Here's one. Oh, that's not gonna. So what's your time worth at that point?
right.
I know somebody who's getting the data directly from the banks in some cases, but we won't mention his name because he's on this call.
Wow.
Zip it, zip it.
Okay. Hey, I love this. I love this. If you guys are not starting, like, if the gears in your brain are just like not going right now, if there has not been a light bulb moment for you on this call, I don't really know if you're a real estate person. Either these are new concepts, you don't really have the fundamentals down yet, but like everybody that understands real estate in some capacity should be like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest opportunity I have ever seen in my entire life, and I'm so fired up, I gotta take action immediately. Because this information right here, if you apply it with all of the other concepts that we've been discussing, I mean, to me, it's so clear that this is the opportunity everybody's been waiting for. Like, this is that blue ocean that everybody is like, doesn't exist, right? Everybody says, oh, wholesaling's saturated, real estate's saturated, everybody's doing this. Who's talking about this? That's what I want to ask everybody in here. Who have you heard talk about this? Nobody. Nobody's talking about this. So why don't you be the first person to go and take action and bring us, some of these leads? I want to share with you guys an opportunity because we already have these guys. These guys already have the experience on how to actually structure these deals, identify these situations, number one, that most people don't even identify, but then solve the problems that these sellers have, right? And we have actually built out a marketplace surrounding this that we are giving everybody access to for free that you all need to be a part of immediately, all right? So if you have not already, I'm going to drop the link. Make sure that you are signed up to the official website, reirev.com, and when you have a lead that you don't know how to navigate, that you have made contact with, submit it. We'll review everything, and if it makes sense for Patrick, Steve, and Juan to actually get involved and uncover and decode the deed or deal, they will. And we will break bread on these deals. There is no better opportunity to get in a room like you are in right now. Get the information, not just entertainment, but real instruction that you need so that you can go out and start taking action, start generating leads, start having conversations with real people that are in real situations where they have real problems. Bring them to people that have more experience than you, that have already gone through this entire process, and be able to actually provide a real solution and help somebody in real life, ladies and gentlemen. I'm praying that this information does not fall upon deaf ears, and that the people in here would truly take this information, apply what they are learning, apply the instruction that they are receiving right now on this call, go out, take action, and then come back when you have opportunity so that we can work on them together. Because you don't have to have everything figured out to get started, but you got to get started if you want to figure this out.
Mhm.
Yeah, and again,
Well
like,
said.
I know that there's, this is newer concepts, and it's hard for people to get all the information within an hour 40 minutes that we've been going so far, which, again, grateful for the platform and for everybody. um I If you guys are loving what is happening here, you guys want to get deeper, well, you got to hit up John. You got to, put some fire stuff here, and let's see how we can develop a continual, right, deeper dive on these concepts, so like that it starts to sink in. Because again, we're talking about 40 years of information, and you guys cannot get it in an hour and 40 minutes. Like, it's impossible. As Patrick was saying, like, he was dealing with very, very high level people, right, that are managing, multi-million dollar companies, and they couldn't get the damn concept sometimes, right? So it may take a couple of times to hear it, more questions, deeper dive, right? So that we can go ahead and answer those questions and give you, the basis so that you can bring those deals to the table. So, yeah, appreciate you, John, man.
I
Yeah, we
appreciate all
appreciate
of
your
you.
time, everybody.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
gotta get Patrick to bed. This guy's
Right,
he has a
right, right.
flight.
We got to get him to bed. Hey, enjoy your flight, brother.
I got a 16-hour flight ahead of me.
Oh my goodness. I hope that you can lay down on the flight, because I mean, sitting in for
Yeah.
16 hours is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, you got to invite somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us. I want to also give a special thanks to RB. I saw RB in the chat that this was a life-changing light bulb moment for him. I saw Q had a light bulb moment. I saw Steve had a light bulb moment. Looks like Daniel's having a light bulb moment. Elpin is having a light bulb moment. I want to really recognize everybody that's in here. This is an opportunity unlike anything else on the internet. You need to invite somebody you think would benefit from being in proximity with us. Until next time, we will catch you in the next one. Stay blessed, everybody.
Adios.
Yeah.